You know, I was usually the only person of color in my class. And I think it wasn't really until I went to St. Alphonsus, I transferred to a Catholic school. I think it was fourth or fifth grade, when I experienced my first racist remark targeted towards me. And it was the first day of school, and I remember one of the kids said to me, called me a nigger. And you know, I'd never heard that word before, really. And so I said, well, I'm not a nigger. But then as I walked home, you know, I remember crying, and you know, I was very confused. I mean, I was just a small child, and it was my first experience with racism. And I walked home the wrong way, and my mother was looking for me. So, you know, that was my first experience. You know, and even though, you know, I had a fairly, because I'm Filipino American and not African American, the racism was still fairly subtle. You know, people, you know, pretty much accepted me at school. I was, you know, your good student, A student. I was a cheerleader. I was, you know, played sports. And so it really wasn't, I think, when I became a cheerleader, I think I just took being a cheerleader too seriously in my senior year. And I began to think about how cheerleaders are supposed to be proud of their schools, proud of their student body. And when I would go to games as a cheerleader, football games, I would realize, especially when we were playing the schools in the South End, that after the games or during the games, when Ballard was losing, people would start, you know, using those terms to describe other kids of color. And it really disturbed me, because I said, I can't be proud of a school, I can't be a cheerleader if that's the student body that I'm representing. And so I think my first political act, public political act, was we used to have these all-school assemblies. And I had resigned as a cheerleader because of you know, that thinking that I couldn't represent my student body. And somebody got up in front of the whole student body, and you know, there's over 500 kids at the student body, and they said, we heard that one of the cheerleaders resigned, and because we elect the cheerleaders, because they're elected by the whole student body, we want to know why. So, you know, I was a little intimidated at the time. I thought, well, I mean, this is pretty much a white-dominated school, and I'm going to get up and tell everybody that they're racist. Well, somehow I found the courage, and I got up and I explained why I resigned. Of course, there were boos. There were a couple of claps, but that was pretty much my first kind of, I think, my first political act publicly to stand up for something that I really felt strongly about.